This is what's really happening with gold and silver right now. One of China's biggest trading banks just straight up stopped trading paper gold. Now, that's huge because it tells you that the smart money is walking away from the fake stuff and moving into real physical metal. So today we're going to get into all the technical and dig deep into all the details here, so get ready for this. My guest is Collin Plume, and he's not some talking head guessing about the markets. He's been inside the physical gold and silver industry for almost 18 years. So while other people are just watching charts and speculating, this guy is seeing the actual buying and selling in real time, and he's also seen firsthand how central banks, governments, and everyday families are all moving in the same direction right now. So we also got into this wild story from 1942 during the Manhattan Project, when the US military just took 14,000 tons of silver from the treasury. They didn't ask for permission, they just took it. Now here's the part that actually affects you. There are actually two different gold and silver markets, one made up of paper and one made up of real metal, and right now they're telling two completely different stories. The price that you see on your screen, that's a paper price, and billions of dollars just fled the world's biggest gold fund while the big players are quietly loading up on the real thing. So we're going to show you exactly who is selling and who is buying. But meanwhile, both the US and China recently labeled silver a critical metal. Governments don't just do that for fun. They do it when something's coming, when they know something is coming. So if any of your savings, retirement, your family's future is sitting in dollars right now, you need to see that there's a gap between the paper and the real. And because once you do that, you'll never look at these numbers the same way again. Welcome to Man in America, a voice of reason in a world gone mad. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. On this show, I talk to real Americans with real solutions to the problems that we're all facing today. I help you connect the dots between what's happening now and the decisions that powerful people made in the past. Because once we understand how we got here, we can learn from it and build a better future. Now, before we start, please hit that like button. It helps with a lot with the algorithm, whatever platform you're tuning in from. It just helps to get this information out to more people. Also, please make sure that you subscribe and share this with someone who really needs to hear it. And let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. And remember, every Man in America show is done as a podcast as well. So if you want to just listen instead of watch, just go to your favorite podcast app. If you use Apple Podcasts and you want to do me a real favor, leave a review on there. Apple really prioritizes the podcasts that have those reviews. So if you like the show, leave a review. It will help me to reach even more people. All right, let's get started with this interview with Collin Plume. Collin, it's good, man, to have you on. It's been actually a little over a month or so, I think, since we last did an interview, and there's a lot of questions I have, and I want to kind of just kind of to have a sober and just solid conversation about where the markets are at, what's happening. And anyway, looking forward to getting into this with you. So thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Good to be on. Always a pleasure. Good to, I know, caught up a little bit off air and excited to be on with you and talk about the summer, the markets, silver, gold, everything that's on people's minds right now.
Perfect, man. So, one question, I have, so we're looking right now, and I've been tracking precious metals for probably well over a decade, and you're really kind of paying attention to things. And what I'm seeing right now is, when we came into this year and we saw that spike, silver hitting up into approaching 120, gold getting close to 5,400, around 5,400, and it seemed like that a lot of that was reflective of very real kind of fundamental things happening in the market, right? Supply, demand, need for new manufacturing, solar, a lot of things that are happening, data centers, mining stuff. But also what we're seeing is that there was this, from what it looked like, this breakdown in the paper manipulation, where the system that was set up to, in essence, to kind of rig the prices, right, and convince people to invest in paper silver and paper gold. Earlier this year, we saw that even some very big banks were pushing back, bullion delivery 4-6 weeks out, and there was a lot of real, I think, momentum towards this idea of that paper system really kind of breaking as a real price was being revealed. I feel like that we're also seeing a lot of kind of tricks coming out from the bankers to keep trying to suppress this. And so I think the fundamentals are still there. And so I just want to see, what's your perspective on what's happening? Because I'm looking at this right now thinking, okay, silver, for instance, was at 120 just earlier this year. It's now hovering around 60. to me, it seems like, okay, hey, this is the opportunity.
Yeah.
In a similar place with gold, but I want to get your perspective from being inside of this industry and seeing things that most people aren't aware of.
Yeah. So I look at the two biggest things that I think about, Seth, is number one, just last week, one of China's biggest trading banks stopped the trade of paper gold. They don't want people trading in paper gold. They saw a lot of manipulation. They're moving away from. There's a lot of reports on this out that they want to get people away from trading the paper in China, and really focusing more on the physical. And I think a lot of it has to do with the volatility we saw over the last 12 to 18 months. So that's the and that's pretty important that a major institution would get out of the paper trading market. It's so profitable to not have to move gold, to not actually have to buy any gold. And so for them to get away with it, they know that the exposure is too high for them, and also for people buying it with them. So that's the first thing that I would talk about. And then I would just talk about what happened earlier this year. And people are saying to me, well, the price pulled back. Who's selling? Why is the price moving back? And it's interesting. And really, if you look at the numbers, ETF, GLD, 14.4 billion in outflows starting March 1st all the way till the end of May. So you had the biggest ETF liquidations in history. And who are those people? And it's mostly hedge funds. It's people getting out of positions that have been in it for a long time, profit taking. I mean, that's why a lot of people would get out of gold on the paper side. But really on the physical side, you haven't seen that amount of selling. So it's just the contract selling. So I think that's the thing that people should keep in mind, is that it's really the paper selling that's pushed a lot of the price down.
So, okay, just to make sure that I'm following along with this. Okay, so when you say SLV and GLD, right? These are the ETFs. These are paper gold, right? So basically, it's almost, my kind of layman's term understanding of it. It's like I'm buying a paper that is roughly tied to the price of physical gold, yet I can trade it on the open market. And so if I wanted to go buy, say, $1 million in gold and hold it and sell it in a month, for a lot of people, they're going to go buy that GLD. They're going to buy the gold ETF, which is the paper representation of that gold, because they can get in, they can get out very quickly, the same way that you would go buy Apple or Tesla and then sell it a month later. And so if I understand correctly, you're saying that from this time in March heading into April, May, that we saw some of the biggest holders of that paper just kind of dumping it, kind of really exiting their paper positions, basically, and even though the paper market is separate from the physical market, they're very closely tied, right? So am I correct in saying that a bank could say, exit a large paper position of gold or silver, dump it into the market, which would then cause, like, say, someone sold a huge shareholder of Apple just dumped 10%, the equivalent 10% of the Apple stock into the market, the price would drop down. So like they could use that that would then tie into the physical price as well. Is that right?
100%. And also, let's tie that into what's happening on the physical market. Obviously, we're a physical gold and silver dealer. So what we saw and what the industry saw was the most liquidations in the physical market in October, November, December, and January was the apex for the whole industry, which was the peak. That was the peak of gold and silver. And these were, on our side, these were clients that had bought gold and silver from us. Some of them had bought it at gold at 1,300. Some of them had bought silver at $14 or $15 an ounce. Well, fast forward to January, the price is 120. If you bought silver at 14 or 15 or 18 or 20 or 30 even, some of those people, took profit in their IRA. Gold the same. Some of them bought gold in the $1,300, $1,400 range, and then gold was at 5,400. So on the physical side, a lot of them sold in their IRAs, went back into cash. Then the slowing dipped on the physical side in February, March, and now fast forward to last month. the lowest amount of liquidations that we've had in 2 or 3 years on the physical side. And that's also how it's been in terms of the industry.
Yes, the world is getting crazier every day. We know that. Every time you check the news, another crisis, conflict. So you can't control what happens out there. You should know that by now, but you can control how you prepare for it. You can make sure no matter what happens, you have the basics covered in each one of these disasters that could reach your doorsteps. Things like having food to eat when the shelves are empty. That's a big one. So when it comes to food security, My Patriot Supply is a great option out there for you. Very affordable. They've helped millions of Americans get prepared. They've got over 90,000 five-star reviews. Right now, you can get their best-selling 3-month emergency food supply for $100 off. They rarely do deals like this. To check it out, if you want to stock up, just get a 3-month supply. Highly recommend having it at least a month. Honestly, at least get to a month. 3 months is great. If you want to check it out, go to Prepare with MIA, Made in America. So preparewithmia.com. The food kit gives you about 2,000 calories a day, lasts up to 25 years. And again, it's $100 off. So preparewithmia.com and go get yours right now.
I think the thing that's interesting is that you see in March, the paper market, March to May, liquidations, paper, price pulls back. The physical selling of gold had already slowed down. And now we're at the lowest point in terms of physical, in terms of our company. And from what I've heard in terms of the industry, the amount of liquidations has slowed down. And some of our clients that bought in an IRA and sold in January and are sitting in cash are coming back into the market because they saw a huge profit, went back into cash. They didn't pay any tax because they're in their IRA. So it's all tax deferred. And now they're coming back in because they like the price in the, $4,000 range for gold, and they like the price for silver. Other clients obviously had liquidated. Maybe they're using some of the money, but then they're like, well, what I'm making 0.7% in a money market or some of these accounts, how am I going to get a decent return? So a lot of them are coming back into the market. So that's the physical side. And that's the story that I think people don't realize is that there's really kind of two markets. There's the physical market and the paper market. And a lot of times they're not moving in the same kind of ways. And people are doing different things for different regions. Most of the liquidation from March to May on the paper market and GLD was people like you mentioned, Seth, that you could leverage $1 million of gold with 50,000 and maybe they timed the market wrong and they're taking a bath and they're trying to get out. So people on the paper market are trying to do things in a much different way than the actual physical buyers of gold. And then you look at the physical, the central banks, no slowing down. World Gold Council came out with just a report. Everybody's on pace we're going to get to 1,000 tons by central banks again this year. So those buyers aren't slowing down and they're buying the actual gold. They're not buying the GLD or the SLV, if that makes sense.
Yes, which is kind of interesting kind of looking at, because I try to look at the kind of zooming out and say, okay, what are the trends and the patterns, right? And I think what you're seeing, you obviously have a lot of the retail activity, right? Like what you mentioned, you're dealing with a lot of retail customers that are coming in with an IRA, they're buying, and because I had a lot of relationships in the gold and silver and jewelry industry, and I kept a lot of those relationships open. So I like kind of talking, hey, what are they seeing as big coin dealers or refiners? And earlier this year, December, January, February, they were so backed up. Everyone was saying, hey, my goodness, wow, this silver's worth so much now, and they're selling and they're selling and they're selling, right? It was actually overwhelming the suppliers, or it was overwhelming, the buyers, and overwhelming the refiners that were buying, continental silver, scrap silver, et cetera. And so, but it's kind of shifting. And so when you say that the central banks, though, are still buying. So I'd seen something recently. I think it was China, and I know that China's like most things, they have a veil of secrecy over much of what they're doing. But from what I recall, their buying of physical gold is exponentially increasing, and they're simultaneously dumping more and more treasury bonds, which I think there's also the big thread: Japan dumping treasury bonds. So it seems like, though I feel like that I've been talking about this for 3 or 4 years, this idea of de-dollarization, this idea of the emergence of the BRICS, the people losing trust and faith in the US dollar as we keep printing and printing and printing and moving towards metals, it seems like that is just accelerating, where sovereign banks and central banks are kind of moving even harder into just to physical metals and moving away from paper, whether it's paper treasury bonds or paper gold and paper silver.
100%. And also, what are the options? I always look at options. Like, what are everyone's options out there? Another tangible investment that people that like precious metals like is real estate. And I think you and I both thought we were going to see some good news, on the real estate front. But now with inflation, reported inflation going higher, there's not much that Kevin Warsh can do in terms of lowering interest rates. You saw the 30-year Treasury continue to go higher, which is going to push the 10-year Treasury higher. 30-year mortgages are not coming down. So there's a massive collapse coming in commercial real estate. We're seeing more and more foreclosures. We're seeing more and more properties go back to the bank. So where can you get that kind of safe return in a physical item that you own? And I think a lot of us thought real estate would be coming back sooner than later. And it doesn't look like the real estate market's going to have the thing that it needs, which it really needs lower interest rates to get things moving again. I do think he's going to do quantitative easing, which will put some money out in the market, because I do think he's going to want to do something. He's even, talked about maybe raising interest rates, which obviously that would completely collapse the real estate market. So I have a hard time believing that's going to happen. But, there's really just not a lot of options out there. The average savings account right now is paying 0.7%. So where can you get a return that's going to keep up with at least the government inflation numbers, which are closer to 4%? How do you get those kind of returns? And I think it's going to just come back to commodities. Copper's, a lot of people are talking about copper and gold and silver. It's one of the true things that will continue to go up over time, because most things are not a necessity. That's the thing about gold and silver. They continue to be necessities in today's world, from solar panels to electric vehicles to everything out there. And then you just see the central banks continuing to buy it. It's really, you can control your destiny with precious metals long term. Whereas a lot of things out there, AI, the unpredictability of AI, I have people asking me about it every day. And I think there's a lot that could potentially go wrong in the AI bubble. I think we're going to go through another, like a 2001 collapse, like we saw in the dot-com bubble. I think we're going to see an AI collapse. So there's just not a lot of investments that feel much safer, that people will actually need and want in this new economy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's kind of, I mean, it is, again, it's we're kind of living in an era right now of a lot of uncertainty, right? It's almost like trying to predict what's going to happen with Iran. It's like, oh yeah, it's going to be a 2 or 3 week operation. It's like, okay, I feel like that we're in kind of Iraq 2.0, right? Or the war on terror 2.0 now, because it's just not settling down. But in terms of even
Absolutely.
looking, it's like, well, where, like, say you're sitting on $1 million IRA, where do you put it, right? Because say your advisor's like, oh, hey, SpaceX, this is where to be. Well, there you go. There's your haircut for the month of if you bought SpaceX early on, short after its IPO. But even the stock market, which has done objectively fantastic. However, it's like it does until it doesn't. And
Right.
if you're looking, you mentioned the 2001 the dot-com kind of bust. I mean, I feel like that the AI, it's almost like you take the scale of the dot-com collapse. It's like what we're seeing now. It's like they've taken that and they've inflated it 100 times over, because it's almost because that bubble has also matched the printing and the increasing of the money supply. And so it's like the whole thing it just feels like that everything is just kind of on the edge of chaos, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Not to be a fearmonger,
Yeah.
that's just the sense I
Well,
have.
Well, and let's talk about global defense, our spending. We're talking about 3 trillion a year. It's a pretty massive amount of spending on everything that's happening, Iran, everything that's out, protecting ourselves. And a lot of people aren't aware. In 1942, this is a story a lot of people aren't aware of. During the Manhattan Project, the government needed metals, and they copper was rationed, and they didn't know where to go. So the military actually borrowed 14,000 tons of silver from the U.S. Treasury, and they didn't ask anybody's permission. They just did it. And so people don't realize, like, it's just another use of silver it's just not talked about enough. And I think when you talk about, military spending and how much the government needs, and I think I told you in my book, I tried a million different ways to find out for my silver book how much silver the government needs, and I couldn't find out any of the numbers. But we've seen this happen from time where the government needs more of these metals, and they're not going to ask; they're just going to take, right? And so last year, you have the U.S. government and the Chinese government make silver a critical metal. It's because they need it for military, they need it for electric vehicles, they need it for all the things they're doing. So they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to publicize it too much. But when they make it a critical metal, when they say that they need it, silver, they're saying that they're going to do everything in their power to keep it and hoard it. And China and the U.S. are doing that. So people think like, oh, with silver, the volatility and what's my long-term projection? It's like, well, if it wasn't in demand, why would China and the U.S. do that? They've never done that. The U.S. has never made silver a critical metal. So they obviously know they're going to need it for the future. The U.S. imports 2/3 of its silver that it uses in this country. So they're trying to gobble up as much silver as possible, but they want to make sure that they don't have to pay an exorbitant price. So they don't want to create this hysteria where they're telling people like, yeah, we actually need way more silver than we're talking about, because they know the price will go up. So I guarantee you, I know who one of the buyers of silver is below $60 an ounce. It's the U.S. government. It's because they want to buy it at this price, and they'll continue to buy it. So it's an opportunity for them. Just like a lot of the Noble Gold clients are seeing an opportunity at this price. That's the thing, is like, if you're going to buy, and people bought it at 100, 110, they bought gold at 5,400, they should be looking at this as a massive buying opportunity. And we've seen gold and silver move like a stair step. They go up, they level off, they go up, they level off. And so I really truly believe that's the dynamic that we're in right now, is you have this massive demand. There was a sell-off on the paper markets in gold and silver, and now you're seeing the true buyers come to the table and they buy the physical metal, and they're not worried about the paper metal, because we know the paper market is all just fluff. We know it almost collapsed last year. I mean, you saw it. I mean, everything, LBMA everywhere. They said they didn't have enough. They didn't have delivery. I mean, it's really just to suppress the price. It's really not an indication of the demand of these two metals.
I couldn't agree more. And actually, I found an article, kind of looking at China. This is that just came out. It says Goldman Sachs hints that China's real gold accumulation may be much more than double official numbers. It says that Goldman Sachs estimates that China bought 48 tons of gold via the London OTC market in May, nearly 5 times the official 10 tons reported, with central bank buying seen underpinning prices amid hawkish Fed pricing. And that's again, this is what you're seeing, right? It's like these China central banks, other sovereign banks, they're not looking at this the same way a lot of retail investors do, where they're looking at, they're watching and say, oh, well, it might go down a little bit more, or they know what they're buying. And if you couple this information together with the other report that we talked about, how China has the Chinese paper gold is shutting down the paper gold trading, right? There's something much bigger going on here. And if you look at, again, really the two competing superpowers in this world are China and the United States. And it's really, it's kind of the age-old tale since I've been alive, right? That there's this competition between the two of them. And a lot of this does come down to what's happening in these markets. But it's almost like you can get this sense that whether it's these governments, the central banks, or even these wealthy family offices, that they see that something is coming and they are quietly moving. It's like Buffett moving into his largest cash position, moving out of the stock market. Like there's something coming and there's these indicators. It's really hard to pinpoint exactly when it's going to happen, but I don't know. I mean, do you get that sense too that there's a big shift that's on the horizon?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, in terms of the industry, it's I've seen it. I've been in the industry for almost 18 years now, and it's like you have these, growth times, and then you have like in the pullback, and you see companies close and go out of business, and we're seeing that this year. There's some of our competitors have shut their doors, and we're getting a lot more phone calls from people, but we're seeing a consolidation. A lot of it just has to do with like who can rise above and continue to operate business and deliver and do things the right way, which Noble Gold has been able to do. And the other thing is like it's just like a boom and bust. A lot of these companies just survive in the boom time, but they don't. When the metals pull back a little bit, they just have a hard time. And so I think there's a consolidation in the industry. A lot more data is coming out about companies. But we at Noble Gold have really just risen up. This has been our staff, average staff right now is almost 7 years with Noble Gold. We've only been in business for 10 years. So it's been really amazing to see this consolidation, this pullback. And then what I'm seeing a lot of now is just a lot of clients coming back, referring people. It's really starting to take shape. So I think we're in the next bull cycle. We're going to see this run up again. And I'm just excited to see where things go.
What's also important for me because anything financial, especially for people dealing with their nest egg, right, their IRA, et cetera, it's a big deal. And I've had a lot of companies come to me and they say, hey, look, we'll offer you large sums of money to promote our gold and silver. And I in the past I've looked into it, and you find out, or actually what I've done is like I will call them as a customer because like I know the industry, right? You can't fool me. And I remember when I first started working with you, this is probably almost 6 or maybe 5 years ago. I called in and I talked to one of your guys, one of your salespeople, and didn't say who I was, and I was probing them. How do you price things? Like, what percentages do you? What's your commission? How does this all work? And I was like, oh, okay. Like, this is actually really good because there's these other companies that they're charging a huge premium, and then they offer these influencers huge paychecks because fundamentally though they're kind of robbing the client to pay the other influencer. And I wouldn't be able to sleep well with that, right? Like my own mom just finished transferring her IRA over into a gold with you guys, right, with Noble Gold. And so that's an important thing. It's also, I went and looked at the reviews, and you might have the occasional thing. It's like, oh, like my package, it took an extra 2 days to get my package to arrive, but fundamentally it's just, there's a positive track record, which is, you mentioned, another, there's a big gold and silver dealer that just went bankrupt, and that's, they owe, tens of millions of dollars to clients. It was almost, the more you peel back the layer, it looks like it was a little of a Ponzi scheme. And so that's what's made me even more confident in just saying, okay, hey, because I feel the responsibility to the audience. If I say, hey, I believe in this, I want to make sure that I actually do believe in it, because that's, like, I won't sell my integrity for a fat paycheck. It's just not how I operate.
Yeah. And unfortunately there are a lot of people that do. And, at the end of the day, we even tell people when they call us, check us out, check out our reviews. You can last like 90 days. I mean, I think we've added like 80 reviews, real clients, people, experiences. It's important to check things out and take your time when you're doing something like this. But I think at the end of the day, the nice thing is you're buying physical metals, you own it, you're in control of it. If you're doing an IRA, we're going to walk you through it, help you with the paperwork. For shipping, we're going to ship to your doorstep safely, quickly. You can read in the reviews people's actual experience they have with us. But at the end of the day, we put our money where our mouth is. We make sure that we get it to you quickly. The product's perfect. And then also what's really important, and a lot of people forget, is like liquidation. You want to have a company that will buy back. People that buy from dealers that go out of business, they're calling us. People buy from Costco. They're calling us to liquidate, and we can buy back. So you have a safe place to sell when you want to take that profit. And a lot of people that liquidated in January made a huge profit. They were happy we're there to take care of them and do it quickly and safely. And now, they're coming back in because they like the price. So it's a two-way street with us, Seth, and that's important. But at the end of the day, we'll continue to do that. And I think, people always joke about it, but it's like once we have this conversation and gold's at $10,000 an ounce, we'll look back and we'll realize that, we were in the right place at the right time. And there's going to be a lot of people that will profit pretty substantially from that, and also be able to take care of their family and protect their family in a great way. And that's really the majority of our clients are family people that are looking to protect themselves and protect their nest egg and protect what they built. And a lot of them are doing that with precious metals.
Exactly. And so for people that are interested in contacting Collin, your team, we've got a really easy website set up. It's just goldwithseth.com. You can fill out the form here, or you can just call in 877-646-5347. Those details are also in the description below. And I can just, again, my own mom just finished up. She's working with Micah, right? I interview sometimes, and she had a great experience. Actually, the trouble came from her own custodian, her own, kind of bank that didn't want to release her funds, because they're like, oh, well, you can move into this instead and everything. They don't want you going into something they can't keep profiting off of. But anyway, she had a seamless experience with it. And so, I look at this, and I'm saying right now is the opportunity. This is the buying opportunity. The fundamentals haven't changed. What's changed has been the dumping of the paper markets, manipulation by the banks. It's kind of a story as old as time, but I think that is kind of, it's shifting. So anyway, Collin, thank you again for giving us your time. And also for all the people that are watching, listening, that have worked with Noble Gold. I thank you too, because that's one of the best ways you can support my show. And that's what's allowed me to be independent. I don't have anybody over my shoulder saying, Seth, don't say this, because I don't take orders very easily anyway. So, but that's also because this has been a big part of that. So, yeah, thank you very much, Collin. It's always great catching up with you.
Absolutely. Talk soon. And anyone looking for free information or want to talk to somebody, a real person, give us a call at Noble Gold Investments.
All right, take care. Thank you, Collin. Ladies and gentlemen, our world is being poisoned. Every day we're exposed to more chemicals sprayed into our skies, leaching into our food, and polluting our air and water. From pesticides and heavy metals to hormone disruptors and synthetic additives, these toxins are bombarding our bodies and silently destroying our health. But there's something you can do to fight back, and it starts in your gut. Kimchi 1 from Bright Core Nutrition contains over 900 strains of beneficial probiotics that will help flush toxins, restore gut balance, and support your immune system. Because when your gut is strong, your body can resist. You'll feel the difference. Better digestion, more energy, clearer thinking, stronger immunity, and even improvements in your skin, hair, and metabolism. And this isn't just hype. Studies show that fermented foods like kimchi can reduce the risk of obesity, improve blood sugar, and support whole body wellness. Kimchi 1 is all natural, non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, and 100% made in the USA by a company that actually cares about your health. And today, you can get an exclusive offer just for my viewers, 25% off with your code MANINAMERICA by clicking the link below. Or call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off your order and free shipping. So give them a call now at 888-575-6488, and their educated staff will make sure that Kimchi 1 is right for you. Again, that's 888-575-6488. All the links and information are in the description below.